Hi guys, what are we going to do today? Today I'm going to show you how I made some old ephemera using fun papers and different things, but we're going to put it on this box, but you could put it on anything. Let's get started.
So I'm going to use my new IOD stamp, and it's Le Courrier. I probably am pronouncing it incorrect, but you can see all these parts and pieces that you can use for so many projects. I'm just going to need a piece about that big, so that's where I'm going to be decorating. And to give this more interest, I'm going to actually heat emboss. I'm using my watermark stamp pad, and it's kind of like a sticky clear ink. And I don't want to smudge this around. I just want to press down on it. I can kind of see where I did that. So I'm just going to put this right next to it. And I'm going to use a fine detail black embossing powder. This is very small image, and I find that the detailed is a lot finer, so it really seems to give you a better look. So whenever you're doing anything very tiny words or print, the fine is better to use for projects like that. And if you need to, you can get a little brush and get the little pieces out. But I think that looks pretty good. And then I'm going to get my heat gun, and we are going to finish this off. So you're going to need to use a heat gun to set your embossing powder. A hairdryer will not be hot enough. And you're going to tell after you start, it will start getting very shiny and raised. So you'll know it's done. Okay, I'm going to let this set for a second. It'll cool off in just a second. Since I'm going to use my box to hold fun ephemera and tickets, I printed off a couple pages of vintage tickets that you can find on Pinterest, or maybe you have some images of old tickets, or maybe you have actual old tickets. So let's just get a few of these, and I am just going to tear them. So I found a lot of times when you have an edge that's really small and it's hard to tear when you go to grab it, to pull it up, I do it the opposite way. And I lay this down over the little piece, but you have to hold it tightly and it gets it off nicely. So depending on the size project you're doing, you might want your tickets really big, really small. You may have other images or things you're trying to use. It doesn't really matter on the size, just as long as it fits with what you are doing. What we're going to do next is I'm going to show you how to make some vintage tape. I'm going to use this packing tape. It's not super high tack, and I've had it for a long time. You could even use Scotch tape or anything that you would like that's clear. And I'm putting it down on this parchment paper, or you could use wax paper. You want to do something that you'll be able to pull it off of easily when you're done. You want more of a yellow color distressing ink. And I'm actually going to use my Wild Honey. So this is just a permanent distressing ink. I'm just going to let this dry. So when we're ready, we'll just pick it up. So this is the box I decided I'm going to use. So I'm going to paint my box up first. And I'm just going to use some off-white and a little bit of a tan paint. And I'm using my DIY paint. And I am just going to paint this up and let it dry. Paint the inside and the outside of the box. I'm just layering the two colors, so while the white is still wet, I'm adding some of the sandy blonde tan color to it, and I'm just going to let this dry. I've got a bunch of this ephemera cut out, and I have it ready to go, so I'm going to start putting it on my box. So this is where you'll figure out what you're putting it on, whether it's a journal page, a box, a book, or whatever you're trying to do. So I'm going to just estimate here about how big I want this, and then I am going to tear it. And I'm probably going to cut through part of the stamp. And actually this embossing, you can tear right through it very easily. I'm going to use some Distress Oxide, my vintage photo, and go around the edges of this. I am just going to adhere this down. So I'm just going to use a gel medium. You can use your favorite decoupage medium that you would like. Gonna let that dry. And then on the inside, I think I'm going to take a piece of one of these and one of my fun tickets. I'm just gonna put my ticket under there and just tape this on the inside of my box. So I'm gonna continue to let this dry and then we'll move on. So I'm also gonna use my Crackled Chippy Paint stamp from the Vintage Textures set of stamps. And this is just another way to make it look just a little more vintage. And I'm using my Stone Gray ink. I didn't want it quite black. And I'm gonna go over my whole box. So no matter what you're doing, this is just another fun way to give you just a little more dimension. So what's fun about this stamp set is you're getting a crackle, you're getting a chippy paint, you get a distressed. So you get a smaller piece, but you get all of these fun vintage textures. It's probably one of my favorite stamp sets because I can use it for so many projects. Okay, so what we'll do next is add a little more antiquing, and I'm going to use my Distress Oxide, my Vintage Photo again, and I am just going to go around the edges of my box. If you were doing it on a page, you could just do it around the edges of your page or whatever you're putting it on. And now I am going to seal this. I'm going to use my Minwax polyacrylic, and it's a crystal clear sealer, and it will also help move the oxide around. And we'll let this dry. So these are all the tickets that I had cut out, and I distressed some of them. And all I'm going to do is make it a pile of them and put a tiny staple in the top. And I thought it would be fun just to add it to the top of this. So I'm just going to use some double stick tape, and part of it's going to hang off. So I'll just tape part way and just have it here, and I think it just looks fun. And then I can fill it full of all my fun tickets, but the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little clasp. So I'm just using a pokey tool. I'm just going to put some brads in here. I've done this in a previous video when we were making paint boxes that held our watercolor paints. So here's another fun thing you can do to make your things look a little more vintage besides the oxide. I'm using my DIY dark wax. It gives you a little bit more of a vintage age look. There you go. Now we have lots of fun tickets, or I could add other ephemera in here. And we have this cute little box.
So I hope you guys thought this was fun. How to do the heat embossing, how to age it, how to add some extra fun things to any project you're doing and make it look a little more vintage using stamps, embossing, aging techniques. I hope you guys give this a try, but whatever you do, have fun.